we're going to talk autonomous driving here with Faurecia, who does primarily your business is interiors. Is that correct?
Automotive interiors, and exhaust systems, exterior modules.
Okay, so I'm fascinated by this concept because I guess I didn't really think about this. That as we move towards autonomous cars, self-driving cars, which we're moving that direction
Absolutely.
already.
Yes.
The interior of a car does not have to be like it is now. I mean, so now a car is designed because you've got somebody sitting behind a steering wheel, driving it, and you've got passengers and so forth. What's going to change?
Well, a lot will change. It'll happen certainly over quite a lengthy period of time. I mean, we're where we are today, which there are some autonomous features in vehicles, but it's going to evolve to a full autonomous activity over many years. But if you look at the interior today, what it's going to change is how do we start to create a better experience for that driver or passenger? And today there's a lot of technology focused on how do you do autonomous driving, which is the obvious thing that needs to be done from a safety perspective.
Now, how does the car itself drive itself?
Exactly. But our focus is on the end consumer and the occupants in the vehicle. What do you do with time that you might give to that person? Mm-hmm. And so it's really about creating a better experience, a more positive experience, looking at things like new seating positions. How do you do that in a safe way and an intuitive way? And how do you deal with things like motion sickness? Because if you're now a passenger, many people who are passengers deal with some level of motion sickness. That we believe is going to become a bigger topic, and we're exploring all of those areas to look at how do we solve some of those issues and create a better experience. So
give me a vision if you can, and let's look way down the road. Let's assume they've come up with autonomous cars that essentially you step into and they drive with very, very little driver interaction. What do you think an interior of a car is going to be like?
Well, I would say that it's a little different than that, because that scenario is one that will happen, but that's quite a few years down the road. I think that what's more interesting to talk about is the interim phase of a situation where you're driving a car, but then it goes into an autonomous mode.
Where you have to kind of monitor the car,
yes,
but that's your role as a driver.
And you have to, then you're letting go because the car is now driving in an autonomous mode. And the seat starts to recline, screens start to become more present for a driver to access. Texting and all the things that we talked about you can't do in driving, you can now start to do and interact with. That is really what we see as a really unique opportunity. We have a demonstrator that we've shown as a first step of autonomous called Intuition.
I know we have some video. I'm not sure if we can roll that video right now as we're doing that, but if the control room's listening, we have that video of that demonstrator, so we'll see. Intuition
is really about smart surfaces, because the whole interaction of the occupants in the driver position and the passenger start to change. Displays can start to change. So a passenger can look at a display, a driver, again, as they're starting to get into more of a lounge position, can start to interface differently, and surfaces become smarter, and controls are done in a much more unique way and an intuitive way that helps to build a much better experience.
You talked about seating configurations. Is there the possibility of the driver turning around or turning sideways so that the interaction with other passengers is better?
Yeah, I mean, the environment will become one that's more about communication or a sense of community or relaxation. Sleeping in a car will become something that we're addressing and looking at. Reading in a car, we anticipate to be an opportunity to give somebody a lot of value when they're given time. And that's what starts to get us down the path of things like motion sickness. Reading in a car can be very challenging for many people, but creating techniques of how you do that, how you position the person in the right space, how you position the material that they're reading in the right space can mitigate a tremendous amount of motion sickness. And those are the research that we're doing.
Right now, while we're in this interim phase, as we're calling it, there has to be some way for the car to know what the driver's doing. Is that also part of what you deal with, is the car understanding what the driver's doing to make sure that they're awake, that they're at least paying some level of attention?
One of the innovations that we've talked about or we have showcased is called Active Wellness. Active Wellness is a product that has sensors in the seat. Could be sensors throughout the interior that are starting to monitor the driver. Because when we talk about a driver releasing control and then having to gain control back, the car needs to understand how engaged the driver is at that point in time. So with these sensors, we can monitor heart rate, respiration rate, and through the variability, we understand if a driver is asleep, drowsy, or stressed. And we can understand their state of health and well-being in that situation, and we can create countermeasures. So if they're sleeping or tired, and they need to take over control, the seat can kick into a massage mode, heating and cooling elements to wake them up.
I'm liking the sound of this.
And therefore it would sensors integrated throughout the interior.
It's got to be an exciting time for a company like Faurecia, because I mean, the automobile has essentially not changed that much in 100 years. There are a couple seats and you sit in it, and
yes,
and that's it. So you're looking at a complete shift in the way we think about automobiles.
Yeah, you know, I've been in the automotive business for 30 plus years. There's never, ever been a more exciting time than now. I mean, if you think about connectivity, you think about autonomous, as we're talking about, you think about kind of a sharing community of, you know, younger buyers very comfortable with car sharing.
Right.
All of these models, all of these things are changing, is going to dramatically change our industry, and we can start to look at the interior and start to really create an experience that really is compelling, and that's very interesting to us.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate your time. That's great, and I'm fascinated by the subject, so I'm glad to have a chance to talk to you about that.
Great. Thank you very much.